Wow, looks like this is my 20th unit review. Somehow I feel like I made a lot more of these, but at the same time a lot less. It's kind of a weird feeling. Anyways though, this unit review will be focused on Sharpshooter Saki, who is an uber rare you get from the Dark Heroes banner. I would say Saki is one of the more interesting units in her banner, as she is a sniper unit with a whopping 600 range, with long distance extending from 500 to 900 range, as well as the target only ability. Throughout all forms, she maintains target alien, and in her first form she also targets red. In her second form, the target red is swapped out with target zombie as well as Z killer. And finally, in true form, she has target relic with curse immunity. Unlike a lot of these unit reviews, I can't really give her a score as a generalist because she can only target 4 traits in the entire game. So throughout the video, we'll be talking about how powerful she is against each trait, along with her strengths and weaknesses throughout all forms. But before we look at how compatible she is against each of her traits, let's analyze her stats. So, the first thing we notice is Saki has an incredibly high 7500 DPS. This super high number is to compensate for her target only restriction, and compensate it does, because from 600 range with LD, this number is amazing. Just for reference, Urarun is in true form has about 6400 DPS from 450 range, so Saki is definitely not lacking in the power department. Saki also has incredibly low cooldown at just under a minute, and this is extremely rare for units with such amazing range and DPS like hers. However, her speed, knockback count, and cost leave something to be desired. 21 speed means she's way too fast for her own good, and oftentimes she'll really quickly zoom into battle and sometimes clip into the enemies, and this is especially a problem for an LD unit, as sometimes Saki will run so fast that they just end up in her massive 500 range blind spot. And the problem with having 3 knockback counts is that when she does clip into the enemy, she can only get hit back 3 times and then she dies. So this number isn't terrible, but combined with the fast speed and massive blind spot, it means it really could be higher. Luckily though, her cooldown is pretty low, but costing 6300 cash means that if you're in a very money tight stage, there's no way you're going to be able to deploy her every minute. She also has a really long backswing animation, which is good, because that means after attacking, she won't immediately run to the enemy like some other Ubers, like for example, Hayabusa does this a lot, where Hayabusa will attack and then just run to the enemy and clip into them, and his LD can't hit them. But Saki's different because her backswing animation is a whole lot longer. The biggest thing is that I would say don't use the cat cannon unless she's in the middle of her attack animation, or she'll run straight into the enemy and gets them stuck in her blind spot. The speed isn't completely bad though, because it means she can run to the front lines quickly if you're playing pretty far away from your cat base. So to sum up her stats, she's an extremely fast and powerful sniper with a low cooldown and a high price. With this whole sniper design in mind, let's see how good her build is against each of her 4 targeted traits. Let's start with target alien. Saki has target alien in all 3 of her forms, and in my opinion, it is extremely useful and is probably her best target. Many annoying aliens like Ursa Major and Calamari are super annoying to deal with due to their high standing range, but since Saki has 600 standing range and LD that extends up to 900 range, she can pretty easily dispatch these otherwise very annoying backliner enemies. Her performance against aliens is pretty similar to Aphrodite from the Almighty's banner, but with the added bonus of having half of Aphrodite's cooldown. But Aphrodite is better because, she can target more than just 4 targets. But anyway, moving on. The biggest caution about using Saki is that you have to make sure you bring some anti-alien crowd control like Seafarer and Psycho Cat, because her massive 500 range blind spot means that if the aliens have too much pushing power, they can just enter her blind spot and make her super good fighting ability irrelevant. For the most part though, she is extremely compatible against aliens and helps take care of a lot of the most irritating alien threats, and aliens aren't known to have many super strong fast frontliner enemies, so Saki for the most part can pretty easily just kill and dispatch them without having to worry about them breaking in her blind spot too much. Saki's second target is against red, which is active in her first form. This target's a lot more situational than target alien, because there are a lot more alien only stages compared to red only stages. Also, a lot of red enemies tend to be beefy frontliners like Berserkori, Cappy, and One Horn. And as I previously stated, Saki is pretty bad against any frontliner enemies that are either super fast or super beefy. So against red enemies as a whole, I would say Saki is pretty mediocre, but she does work extremely well against one of the most annoying red enemies in the game, which is Professor A. Boasting 500 range, rapid attacks, and the slow ability, Professor A has caused me to rage many times throughout playing this game. Luckily though, Saki completely hard counters him, because she outranges him by 100, and each time she attacks, she shreds off giant chunks of Professor A's health because he's not very tanky, so she can easily dispatch this guy. And she also outranges Dark Emperor 9dam, though personally I don't really find Dark Emperor 9dam as annoying as Professor A. It is noteworthy that she does outrange him, and she's one of the few units that can. For the most part against reds, pretty mediocre, but against 2 of those enemies, she's extremely good and is one of the rare Professor A counters. And if you're anything like me, I hate Professor A, so this is a good unit against reds. Saki's third target is Zombie, which replaces her target red in evolved form, and she also gets Z-Killer as a bonus because, I mean, having target Zombie without Z-Killer would be pretty terrible. Even with the Z-Killer though, I would say Saki is pretty bad against most zombies. As we know, Saki is a sniper with a big ass blind spot, and as we also know, almost every zombie in the game is a melee fighter that likes to burrow underground and into the middle of your units. So this means most zombies just end up burrowing and clipping right into Saki and being able to easily kill her and render your hard-earned 6,300 cash wasted. Just like her target red though, her target zombie is extremely powerful against 2 of the most problematic zombies, that being Zamel and Cadaver Bear. Zamel boasting 551 range and Cadaver Bear 360. There are very few Z-Killers that are able to reliably or easily kill these zombies. Saki is the exception though, due to her high damage stat and range. Saki is able to quickly knock back and kill both of these zombies, making her basically a silver bullet against these 2 zombies. But if neither of these 2 zombies are present in the stage, do not bring her in this form, because unlike target red, Saki is not just bad, but terrible against anything other than these 2 zombies. So against the trade as a whole, Saki is useless, but against the 2 really annoying zombies, she is probably the best gift you can have against them. And as you well know if you've watched any of my videos from the past, I do not like Cadaver Bear, and I think he's trash, and I like having Saki to murder him. Moving on to Saki's true form, her 4th and final target is Relic, which replaces her target zombie with this target, as well as replacing her Z-Killer with Curse Immune. Relics have very few good counters, so getting an anti-relic true form was a pretty nice thing Ponos added. Unlike her target red and zombie, I would say Saki's target relic is a lot more useful against the majority of relics, whereas the red and zombie targets were only good against like a handful of enemies. Being able to insta-kill relic doges and Sirels is really nice because they're pretty annoying enemies with surprising amounts of DPS, so being able to just one-shot them is always a nice touch. Also, Saki's probably one of the best units in the game against relic Moth and Loki. 2 enemies with very few good counters. So if you haven't noticed the trend, Saki is extremely good at taking care of at least a few enemies in each form she has. It is usually good at dispatching backliners in each form she has. Aside from the aforementioned enemies, she's a pretty nice source of damage against killing Emost, and does outrange the boss enemy Urzen Fenrir, as well as Loris, but at certain ranges, Loris is kind of weird to fight due to his weird LD properties. I looked on the Wikipedia and apparently there's only 18 relic enemies, and looking at all of them, I would say she's good against roughly half the relic enemies in the game. Although she stands 0 chance against Relic Bun Bun, and has pretty bad performance against Old Horn due to, you know, they're both pretty beefy and they're both frontliners. With all 4 targets addressed, let's discuss her overarching strengths and weaknesses. So throughout all forms, Saki has the pros of low 58-second cooldown, very high damage and DPS, especially for her very high range. Her LD has 300 piercing range and 100 inner piercing range. The 300 piercing is really good, the 100 inner is not, obviously. And her other pro is that she is a counter to many difficult threats that if you didn't have Saki, you wouldn't be able to easily counter. So if you watch the whole video, you would know red would probably be Professor A, zombie would be Zamel and Cadaver Bear, alien would be, she's good against almost all aliens, so most aliens, and Relic would definitely be Loki and Autumn. All of these factors are what makes Saki a pretty powerful and valuable unit, and is not useless in any of her forms. She's not without fault, however, as she's bogged down by her high 6,300 cash cost, very mediocre 3x knockback count, her high 21 speed that causes her to clip into enemies sometimes, the gigantic 500 range blind spot, which means basically anything under the sun can just kind of have a party in that blind spot and just beat the crap out of her, and the most obvious weakness being she can only target 2 traits per form, 4 targets total. With being a target only unit with LD, there is one super sucky fact I must inform you about. So, you know how Saki's LD spans from 500 to 900 range? Well, if she wants to attack, the targeted trait has to be in 600 range or less, close to Saki. So if we pull up some old footage, you can see that this Professor A is just standing there, and Saki isn't attacking her. And that's because these traitless enemies are in front of the Professor A, so because the red enemy isn't within 600 range, Saki won't attack, even though with her LD she could hit the Professor A if she did attack, but again, she can't, because he's not in her standing range. So in mixed stages, Saki's even worse. Just thought I'd bring that up. I meant to do it earlier, but I forgot. These negative properties prevent Saki from being completely overpowered, and limit her busted levels of strength, primarily killing enemy backliners of one of her 4 targeted traits. So with her pros and cons discussed, how does she rank against each of her targets? For target alien, I have to give Saki an S. She dominates a lot of Into the Future and Cats of the Cosmos stages, and is extremely compatible against the slower moving, less powerful alien enemies that inhabit a lot of stages. And the main reason I got S2 is that there's a ton of alien stages, you know, Into the Future, Cats of the Cosmos, parts of Stories of Legends, and Uncanny Legends. She just slaps there. And having this target in all 3 forms is what helps her most. Next up, the red target. I gave Saki a B+ here because she's really good against Nyandam and Professor A. And it's definitely not bad against other red enemies, though I'd prefer to use something without a massive blind spot against a lot of reds. It's undeniable that her DPS and range are both great. Next up, her evolved forms target zombie. I gave Saki a B- here. Now the only reason she ranks this high is due to being a Zamel and Cadaver Bear hard counter, but if these 2 zombies didn't exist, I'd demote her to like a D or maybe even an F ranking. That just shows how valuable she is against these 2 enemies. But against most zombies, I would just not bring her at all. She's not worth it. And finally, against Relics, I gave Saki an A. Once again, anti-relics are extremely rare to have, so having a strong anti-relic that not only has good DPS, but also good range is incredibly valuable. And while pretty bad against a handful of relics, her performance against the majority of them is overall pretty solid, granting her an A as an anti-relic sniper. And with all that said and done, that wraps up today's unit review. If you're still watching, thank you, you're awesome. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment, do you agree or disagree with my sentiments. I kind of had to rank Saki differently than all the other units just because, again, only 4 targets. I just decided I might as well just rank how good she is against each trait. Also, if you didn't know, I do a community poll before I make these unit reviews, so if you want to vote on which unit I pick, do subscribe and check the community polls every now and then, because I do ask like a couple days or maybe just a day after the unit review uploads what you want next. I don't make them very quickly, as you can tell looking at my video history, but I do make them eventually, and I do make what was voted for. Another thing, I do have a Clash Royale clan. It's called the Furnace Haters. My in-game username is Potato Empire, so if you want to join the Furnace Haters, now log on and come join. We need more members, and we do our war attack, so if you want a free legendary every week, be sure to join. Really appreciate it. And I haven't plugged this in a while, but I do have a Discord server. There's like probably 3 dozen people in it, only a handful of active members, but yeah, that's there if you ever want to chat with me. I'm a lot more active on Discord than I am on YouTube because I'm a lazy boy who would rather just talk than actually do anything productive. So do join that if you want to join a conversation. You know, I'd say I'm pretty chill. So with the Clash Royale clan and the Discord plugged, I'm going to sign out now. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Peace.